You've probably encountered the popular version of the eagle and condor prophecy. In this telling, the eagle represents the industrial, intellectual mind of the West. The condor is cast as the intuitive, spiritual heart of indigenous peoples. Their reunion symbolizes a global healing where the mind finally reconciles with the spirit. While poetic, this framework is a much later European interpretation. It effectively misrepresents the ancient teaching by imposing Western categories of mind and heart onto an older tradition. By defining the West as the intellect, this myth centers European society and strips the prophecy of its actual geographical and historical context. The true keepers of this prophecy are the Quechua and Aymara peoples of the Andes. To groups like the Q'ero, this was a sacred teaching held for centuries, long before Christopher Columbus ever set sail. To understand the prophecy's actual power, we have to look past the modern metaphor and toward the literal, historical blueprint it provides. The ancient origins of the prophecy begin with Pachacamac, the god of time. Thousands of years ago, Pachacamac created the sun, Inti, and the moon, Kia, from the union of his own tears. From this sacred birth emerged the peoples of Abya-Yala, the landmass we now know as the Americas. Two great protectors emerged from this lineage, the Anga de Hanan, the eagle of the north, and the Kuntur of Uran, the condor of the south. This origin story grounds the prophecy in a shared mythological and literal ancestry for the entire hemisphere, rather than a metaphor for modern psychology. The prophecy functions as a geographic guide for the reunification of specific indigenous nations. It identifies a full pantheon across the hemisphere, with the eagle representing the north and the Quetzal representing Central America. In the southern reaches, the hummingbird represents the Amazon, while the condor represents the Andes and the south. Prior to European arrival, these nations were already connected through vast kinship trails and trade networks that stretched across the entire continent. The 500 years of colonization, trauma, and separation are viewed by the elders as a long winter of preparation. The prophecy's modern activation began in Bolivia. In 1970 and 1971, an eagle from Turtle Island in the north traveled to join the condor in the south. This movement reached a continental scale at the first continental encounter of indigenous peoples in Quito, Ecuador, in 1990, where the Union of Tears was publicly declared. These gatherings in Bolivia and Quito represent the modern continuation of the prophecy, a multi-generational effort to restore indigenous unity and address the historical impacts of colonization. To understand the final stage of this movement, we have to look back at the original teaching regarding the human mind. Elders have always taught that the longest road any human being will ever walk is from the head down to the heart. This balance was a foundational part of indigenous societies across the hemisphere long before European contact. The real crisis facing the human family today is that the modern mind has become dangerously separated from the wisdom, compassion, and sacredness of the heart. The prophecy describes a process of restoration that begins with the reunification of indigenous nations across the Americas. From that restored foundation of unity, a broader healing can then extend to the rest of the human family. The prophecy of the condor and eagle is a living blueprint for a world built on justice, balance, and harmony with all life.